Eric. You guys hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. All right. I don't know if Michael or Chris are gonna. Oh, there's Michael right there. Zoom kind of changed their platform a little bit, and we have several different professional accounts, and now you have to like launch from their actual software instead of being able to just used to be able to launch straight from the browser, and now I gotta sign out of the account, sign back in, make sure I'm in the right account. It's actually a pain in the butt. But I think we got it now because this particular meeting is done from my personal Zoom account because I set it up way back. All right, Michael, you said you have no one from your side, but Chris said he has 2 participants today.
I think so, yeah.
Eric is with Michael Abdi.
Oh, Eric is. Hi, Eric. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Where are you from in the US?
I'm from New Jersey. How about yourself?
I'm in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Reno, Nevada. And then we have, I didn't get a name. This is RB. I think you're working with Chris. You're on mute. It looks like you're on mute. Sorry.
Me or RB?
RB, sorry.
See, it looks like his mic might not be working. In the interest of everybody's time, I'm just going to go ahead and kick things off. And I'm going to text Chris and just let's see what Chris said. So Chris, so it is another Chris with us today, Chris Herrock. So Chris, we can't hear you, but we see you. And maybe we can get your mic figured out by the time we get to Q&A. And then, oh no, Chris Herrock is a different participant. Let's see. That is supposed to be the Chris Herrock is the other person we're waiting for. So, in any case, thanks for being on the call. We've been doing this call now for it'll be coming up on 2 years come October, and it's just a way of getting people introduced to the brand so that we can do that preliminary stage of information before getting to our discovery day, which is kind of where we get into the secret sauce. And so I'll do a real short intro of myself because we do record these videos for our own purposes. We review them from time to time because we get really good questions asked because we get participants from all over the country to be on these calls and ask really good questions that help us kind of craft the brand based on those different perspectives. And that's an important part of franchising to begin with. And so I was born and raised Portland, Maine, ended up in Maryland because I met my wife in college, and I'm now reside outside of Gettysburg in Hanover, Pennsylvania, which is where our company is headquartered. We have gone from one location in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to we have over 25 locations operating at the moment, mixed between corporate stores and franchise locations. We began franchising in February, March of 2021. We've sold over 100 units and to about 60 or so franchisees. The demand for the brand has been really good because of the model. Michael has been a part of the journey since day one, so he has seen, this thing from its start and where it is right now. But the core principles of what we're trying to achieve have not changed since day one. You can go through any of our calls that we post on YouTube, and we've got over 30 of these calls now on YouTube. It's been the same from day one. We are an oil change only model. We are a low overhead model. We are a lean model, and our North Star is delivering a fast, no hassle oil change to the customers. And We've always tried to reverse engineer how to get to that point, and it started with the building itself, and the flow of the labor. This has typically been a labor intensive business, and we've been able to create a model that allows for it to be just as efficient with less employees. And these days, especially, if anyone has employees on this call, you know how difficult the climate's been, and especially in retail lately. So that's a really high level overview. Probably, Michael, the quickest one I've ever done on any of these calls, but I figured we could go straight into the Q&A since it's a small group today. And if Chris's other participant joins, then we can kind of go back over it since it was a quick one. But since it's just us, and did Chris text you this gentleman's name, or is your mic working, sir?
Yeah, he did. It's Robert. Hi, Robert.
Robert's mic isn't working.
Okay.
If you want to, hey, Robert, if you want to ask any questions in the chat, feel free. And then, Eric, I'm going to continue the call after you guys drop off, because I've been meaning to reconnect with Eric. Oh, Chris just joined. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, Chris.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Yes, good.
Hey, so Robert's mic isn't working, so Q&A has been a little short today.
Uh-oh.
Well, you haven't been well. You haven't been well either, Costa. You feeling better?
Yeah, I've just got a lot of stuff in my chest, so but my head feels better, and that's the only thing I really care about. So if Eric, you want to ask any questions in the chat, just, a little bit more about the brand. We hold a discovery day every month, and it's a more of a deep dive into what we call the secret sauce, into how we do things and how we were able to do what some of the larger brands were unable to do. We have a really robust discovery day where we go into the nitty gritty of the business model, and we've had a lot of success with onboarding franchisees after our discovery days. So we want to be the Chick-fil-A model of oil changes. We want to be able to replace that top of mind brand awareness and become known as the fast oil change option, especially when some of our competitors are content with kind of moving away from the oil change only model. And so that's kind of the direction that our space is going. There's very few brands tripling down on the oil change oil only model, and we think that's going to be our opportunity.
I don't know what questions are permitted or not permitted, but do you mind describing the building a little bit to me? I know you said you re-engineered the building and worked backwards. Is there something special about the building, and what is it?
So when I say reverse engineer, I don't mean physically reverse engineer the building itself. When I say reverse engineer, I'm talking about the model itself, and why are other brands moving away from the oil change only model. And for a lot of the other brands like Jiffy Lube and Valvoline, their buildings are extremely expensive. And so I identified the problem and then reverse engineered from there. And to me, it starts with the building. And so, okay, why are these buildings costing $1 million+ to build these days? Why is it so expensive to build a oil change building? Because these are special use buildings. And so we set out to design a building that could have the same unit economics as any of the other oil change brands and not have that price tag. And so we've been able to navigate that, and we have a building that is a fraction of the cost of other quick lube facilities. And that is what allows our franchisees and our corporate stores to focus on the oil change only model. So when I say our North Star is oil change only model, that means everything else below it needs to work to make that model stay true. And so when you get into this place where your rent is $10,000-$15,000 a month, that's a lot of oil changes, and the oil change intervals are longer than ever before. It used to be you get an oil change every 2,000 miles. That's a lot of churning of cars, and so you didn't have to worry about a $10,000 a month rent because you were doing, very high revenue. But as the model has changed, especially as electric vehicles start penetrating the market, you need to be able to make a profit without doing as many vehicles. And so for us, we say, okay, the two biggest expenses are the rent and labor. How do we take care of that? So that's what I mean by we reverse engineered from there. The building itself is a prefabricated building built with SIPS panels. I actually have some of the materials here at the warehouse, and we show them during Discovery Day. But essentially, the materials are delivered to the site in a kit and then assembled, as opposed to a stick build where everything's done from the ground up. And this allows for a lot of flexibility with the supply chain, ordering things way in advance and ordering things in bulk to be able to be discounted, as opposed to, when you do a normal construction site, you're, taking several trips to Home Depot and, buying things on the fly for that specific job, as opposed to, well in advance.
I don't know if you guys can hear me now. I dialed in by phone.
Yeah, I can hear you, Robert.
Okay, excellent. Luckily, I'm not getting any feedback. I don't know why. It shows that my speakers are working. I even did a little audio test, but I guess not. So kind of like the gentleman just said, I'm not sure what questions are permitted on this call. So if I'm asking something, I have some curiosity as far as like what percentage of synthetic versus like 10W30 do you see on average at the stores?
Yeah, so that's a good question. 10W30 is a funny weight because like 20 years ago, you could have probably put that in every single car and it would have been just fine. And now oil has become very specialized. Chris and Michael both have a PDF on industry averages that they can share with you that show the breakdown across the country. So what might be the case for us, very, very Northeast weighted, as we onboard more franchisees, we're getting more data points, but, our corporate stores are very Northeast weighted. So a lot of SUVs, it might skew our data versus what you might see, Robert. And I don't know what market you're in, but
Sure.
We are at that tipping point where full synthetics are starting to be the majority of the oil changes that we do. And it's a higher margin service because the cost differential for us for a gallon of synthetic blend versus full synthetic is actually very marginal. And so when we price our price point at maybe $10 below Take 5 or Valvoline, we're making a really good margin on full synthetic oil changes. And so we do have to cater to those specialty use cars that have the specialty use oils. But when we know what our bulk capabilities are and we know what our data points are for our customer base, that allows us to be really lean with our inventory. And so I did a system-wide call with all of our franchisees early in January to kind of go over our 2022 numbers. And for the first time since I've been in this business, which is since 2014, 020 was more than 520. And so 530 was still our number one weight, but 020 passed 520. And what that tells me is, okay, this shift is happening. We might need to rearrange our tanks. We might need to rearrange our ordering. And that all just goes right down to the bottom line.
Yeah. So I'm in San Antonio, Texas, which is a pretty large metropolitan area. And I have 2 new car franchise dealerships here, and I run the service departments on both of those. And, most of what we see is synthetic. And, we went through, I don't know, probably several quarters, at the end of last year that, regular oil was actually more expensive for us than synthetic oil was. And it was just kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's not even really conventional oil anymore, and people get confused by that. They think that conventional oil should always be cheaper, but the fact of the matter is, if it's not being produced as much, it's just simple supply and demand. If there's not a lot of demand for it and there's not a lot of supply of it, the price of it's going to go up. Whereas, the price of full synthetic will continue to probably get better for us as it gets manufactured and blended in a much higher quantity. But that doesn't mean the price. I mean, the price. It's funny because I follow Valvoline's earnings calls because they're the only publicly traded company in our space. Although Take 5 is owned by Driven Brands, which is publicly traded, but the CEO of Valvoline, Mike Mitchell, he talked on one of his earnings calls. He's like, we've never once gone backwards from a price increase. So our margin will get better when these supply chain problems pass, but our full synthetic is still going to be $99.99. So I think the consumer has been accustomed to the $100 full synthetic oil change, and I think it's here to stay. And so if we price ourselves just a little bit lower, we can, utilize that as a customer acquisition point.
Yeah. So what is the price point for a full synthetic?
So we don't mandate pricing at the franchisor level. So some of our franchisees have different pricing and they'd rather compete with the other brands head to head and not on price. So some of our franchisees are selling $99.99 oil changes. Some of them are $89.99. Our corporate stores right now are $79.95. We've tested some markets at $84.95, but we have not yet made the full-on move to get to $89.95 or $99.95, because every single day that we can hold pricing back, we're gonna just gain more customers. And then eventually, when we flip that switch, it's just gonna be a nice inflow of new cash.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I'm at $79.95 on a full synthetic here at the dealership, and anything over and above that, and I see our business drop off by 20 or 30% immediately.
Yeah. So, and when we compete with, whether it's full service shops or dealerships, we often try to position it as, look, you're paying us for convenience. We can get that extra premium because there's no appointment, or you show and go. And then obviously the dealership gets the credibility side, where that's a pain point for our industry, is that Jiffy Lube has kind of created a credibility crisis in our industry. And so we have to push back against that. So it's, we usually partner with a local auto repair shop to have them send us oil changes, because they're not really making money on oil changes, because they just don't do enough of them for their pricing to be. So they're usually doing it as a loss leader to be able to sell other services anyway. So we'll find a local shop and say, hey, you send us your oil changes, we'll send you what we see, because we're doing volume. We see these inner tire wear, we see this. And so dealerships are kind of in that tricky middle place where, like, sometimes it's not convenient. Sometimes you have courtesy shuttles. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes your employees hate doing oil changes. Sometimes, like, dealerships, I don't envy. I don't envy service.
Yeah, we struggle at a dealership level because our model's not built for convenience at all, and it's an hour and a half process if you have an appointment. If you don't have an appointment, you might wait 2 or 3 hours to get in and get an oil change done.
Yeah, it's not easy. So then it comes down to what the priority of the consumer is. Do they prioritize convenience, or do they prioritize credibility? Do they prioritize, you guys sometimes give away free oil changes as part of the service package with the sale of the car. But, our model, we have no shortage of people here that forego their free oil changes because of the fact that we really stick to the oil change only model, and we don't have a hard upsell model, and we don't try to sell other services, and we really hone in on the 10-minute oil change. People will pay for their time back all day. And so, that's, as long as we stick true to that and we don't dilute that model by trying to wear too many hats, I think that we'll continue to see success in customer acquisition.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. We give away, well, we don't give away, but when you purchase a new vehicle, typically your first oil change is free. That's, I have a Mazda and a Kia franchise, and that's kind of the standard protocol. But believe it or not, only about 40% of customers actually take advantage of that free oil change. So 60% of them don't even want to come into the dealership for a free oil change. If that gives you any kind of a indicator as to how much people value their time because they all know it takes an hour and a half. So I think the business model is very sound. Like I said, that's one of the most attractive parts of it. And, and sticking true to just the basic oil change and wiper blades, just basic service, without upselling is huge.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going for. I mean, we had one discovery day where the head of the franchise development company that we use, his wife was at the dealership with his children, and she was there for 4.5 hours, and we had done 7 vehicles just in the time that we were visiting the shop, and it kind of like highlighted the whole problem because their courtesy vehicle was already being used. They only had one courtesy vehicle, so they were stuck in the waiting room, and they also only had, like, different dealerships have different rules about the bullpen and who's allowed to do oil changes versus different types of work, and they only had one person who was a lube tech, and so it was just a really interesting so Michael, you're going to want to write down that note. 60% of people don't use their free oil changes.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, Costa, I remember the day we were out there. Robert, there were 7 cars that went through in 45 minutes. And I'll never forget, one of those cars was a lady in a black Passat, VW Passat. And she had her son in the back who was in a car seat. And Costa's manager gave him one of the little promotional fluffy toys. And I could tell you, she was so happy. He sat patiently in that seat, and it made me realize that I've been to Jiffy Lube, and so I understand the story there. And going into the waiting room, I've seen a mom in the waiting room trying to corral her kids from pulling down the TV and knocking over the coffee machine. And that is key. And I hear this more and more is women that have young kids and also without kids enjoy Costa because they could stay in the car. The kids will generally be in one place and they can be in and out. Once they get into the bay, it's basically, if it's a domestic car, it's 7 minutes. That's it. Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive. That is.
Thanks. Any other questions, Robert, while you got me?
No, I like I said, I've got to use some other questions, but I can wait till we get a little further in depth through the model with Chris. But like I said, I think the structure's fantastic.
Yeah, make sure Chris gets you that. I don't know if you have them at the dealership or if you've heard of it. National Oil and Lube magazine, National Oil and Lube News. It's our industry's version of Restaurant Week. It's basically the foremost authority on the quick lube business, and he can get you the industry guide that has those percentages for 2020. I think the most recent one what year do we have, Michael?
2021.
22. Oh,
We
no.
have 2022?
No, I guess 2021.
Yeah, I don't think 2022 is out yet, but it's going to show more of the same. Just it'll have a lot of those questions that you have about, the trends of the industry.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. No worries.
Yeah, perfect. That'd be great.
All right.
Cool.
Great.
Eric, if you want to hang on, we can just continue our conversation for a little bit and everyone else can drop off.
Great.
Sure,
Thanks,
sounds good.
Costa.
Y'all have a good day.
See you.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
See you,
Bye,
Chris.
Chris.
So we hold this call every single week, and we will have anyone from, one person, obviously, to sometimes we've had like 8, 9, 10 people on this call, and it usually goes a full hour. And I usually do a half hour of background talk before this one. I kind of just, because it was just one person, I skated through. I figured the questions would be more important to him anyway.
Yeah.
But this is usually the precursor to getting people into our discovery day, which is where they will, really see what makes us different from the other brands, because there are several franchise brands in our space.
Yeah. but it seems like you guys got the execution down to a science.
Yeah, selling these things has not been a problem. You know, it's really the getting them open. And I kind of made reference to that in our call or in the text, because two of our stores, one of them that's already open and one is that's about to be open in 3 months. Both are gas station car wash conversions. And I don't know if that's a trend in the gas station business to be shutting down those single bay car washes, but they seem to be pretty available.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that's a trend or not either. I do have contacts at like Cumberland Farms and Exxon that I'd be happy to leverage and see if they could offer any insight to for that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we want Abdi to come in is for that exact thing, like targeting these connections to see if there's a way to get these things open faster rather than the way that we're currently doing it, which is just like sourcing them on a 1-by-1 basis. Getting in the door with like a Getty Realty, which owns, thousands of gas stations, could potentially be a game changer. And so that's why I think Michael might have wanted us to connect, might be that very specific thing.
And then what's your timeline? Say I come to you, I have an out parcel. How long from the day you sign the lease on the out parcel until the doors open does it take you?
If you have an out parcel, like if you come into it with the land and it's already zoned, it takes very little time. So our Peachtree City location, if you Google Costa Oil Peachtree City, that store opened within 6 months of him joining the system. If you do a new construction, it's probably about a 9 to 12 month process, as long as the zoning isn't a headache. If we are building a building on top of leased land, it's a little bit different and a little bit more difficult because the investor is only secured by the building and not the land. So a lot of the time these guys want it to be a fee simple deal and they'll want to buy the land if at all possible. But sometimes it's just not the case. And so the only thing they're really going on is the credit of the franchisee.
Uh-huh. Well, the reason I'm asking is like myself in positions I've held, we make connections with all the big REITs like Federal and Kimco. And I mean, we could sit down, get a portfolio review, say, where do you have out parcels at your A centers on your A intersections that are already pre-approved, and where can we open up? And then if you have a accelerated program where the building is a prefab and we can get one out there quickly, these are things that we can get open faster as opposed to hunting down one location at a time.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. There's no way around it.
And that's what I do. That's what I've done. And especially being, I grew up in the auto repair industry, and then now I couple the franchise expansion along with that. I think it'd be an awesome coupling.
Yeah. So I'm glad we got a second chance to connect. Just now getting my voice back a little bit. So I appreciate you holding off.
No problem.
So I know I'll talk to Michael, because at the end of the day, if I sell him the franchise side of the business and I become a franchisee of the system, ultimately his decisions will be what reign. And so, but I'll give him the feedback because he asked me to talk to you, and I think it could be a really good fit. And so that's the feedback I'm going to give, and then it'll be up to him.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. If you don't mind me, this is me just being nosy, because I've built up a franchise. I've sold it. I've done the term sheets and the asset sale agreements. Like, what's going on in your head right now? Like, where are you at, and what's your timeline look like? Because I've been there, so I'm just trying to relate right now.
Yeah, I mean, so he's in 30
larger.
days of we have a signed term sheet where he's in 30 days of due diligence. He's on the very back end of it, so it's going to be closing relatively soon.
Okay.
I do think that I could have executed on this organically without bringing in outside money, but it might have been a little bit more tumultuous, and there might have been a little bit more disgruntled franchisees. And for me, the most important thing is supporting our franchisees and making sure that they get the best potential help possible. And so after a long time of deliberation and conversations, I think the best thing for the franchisees is to sell the upside of the system in exchange for the potential of getting stores open faster. I'm carrying some upside on the back end of the transaction, so it's not like I'm losing. I'm not going to lose out if there's a huge exit. But at the end of the day, this is not a money driven thing for me regardless. And I'm more, concerned with the 60 or so franchisees and making sure that they're getting the support they need.
That's awesome to hear, especially from a founder. Like, I've been a franchisee where the franchisor can give two shits about you, and it's the worst. Your stores are not going to get open. If they do get open, they're not going to be successful. You're not going to have good people out there speaking about you. I mean, it sounds like you're doing the right thing for your business, and I love to be a part of that, especially the franchisees. I love when they have the support, because then that makes my job easier. It's like, guys, we're here for you. We're here to help you get the most successful stores open as fast as possible. And then it's a much better growth for everybody.
Yeah, and that's why I opted to go with someone like Abdi as opposed to, say, any of the private equity groups that are just trying to buy the cash flow. This business is so sought after at the moment because every dollar is taken in at the point of sale. There's no chasing money. It's cash flow heavy. And the franchise system has been very successful in the quick lube space. So I could have very easily sold this system to someone who was just going to churn and burn it and flip it to the next PE group. But I don't think that would have been a disservice to the franchisees.
I have one last question, if you don't mind, while I got you. So who were the two gentlemen, Chris and Michael, on the call, and what is their position? Are they with Mike, or are they?
So they
brokers?
are with Fran Devco, which is who we have a service agreement to do all of our franchise sales with. We don't internally sell franchises, although, the weekly call is a huge, I do a lot of their job for them on this weekly call. This one that we did today is not really indicative of the true breadth of what these calls typically are. But Michael and Chris love that I do these calls because it does a lot of the work for them. But Fran Devco serves a purpose because they have the relationships with the brokers. I'm never going to do the dog and pony show with the brokers. I'm not going to, kiss the ring of these brokers that think that they have all this power. And so, the broker world is I don't know how familiar you are with the franchise broker world, but it's a dog eat dog world, and they really just gravitate towards whoever's closing. And sometimes they gravitate towards whoever's, kissing their ring the most. And I'm just not about that. So, using Fran Devco outsources that. They can deal with it. They can make those relationships, and they get a big cut of the franchise fee because of it.
Okay. All right. Do you have any other questions for me?
No, I'm interested to see, I just want to see this transaction close before I can decide what the next move is. Because obviously, if during due diligence, if Michael backs out, then we have to pivot what we're going to do. So then I'll probably reach back out and see about different options. But if Eric's going to build, if Michael's going to build a team to kind of be the all-star team to really see this thing through, then I trust his judgment.
Okay, awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing from you. If you need me to do anything, or if there's any actions I should be doing in the meantime, please let me know. But yeah, I look forward to hearing from you.
Cool. It was good to reconnect. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Costa. Bye-bye.
Bye.